According to eyewitnesses, Jesus Christ demonstrated his power over death. They tell us that after he died on a cross and was buried, Jesus suddenly appeared to them alive on the third day. Then he was seen by other followers, including 500 people on a single occasion. Soon word spread everywhere that Jesus had risen from the dead. Here are 5 possible explanations for the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus didn't really die on the cross. Jesus' body was stolen. The disciples were hallucinating. The account is legendary, or it really happened.
Was Jesus dead? Could Jesus survive the cross? Well, there is no evidence for that. The evidence shows that he did die on the cross, because all accounts affirm he died. Pilate verified he died. During the lifetime of the eyewitnesses, no one disputes his death, and secular and contemporary historians refer to his death as a fact. For more information about this, check out the link in the description. Was Jesus' body stolen? Maybe the disciples faked the resurrection story by stealing the body of Jesus Christ and then claiming he was alive. First of all, the tomb where Jesus was buried belonged to a well-known member of the Sanhedrin Council, Joseph of Arimathea. This wasn't simply a cave. Joseph's tomb was at a well-known location and easily identifiable, which makes the robbery pretty hard. Romans had assigned guards to watch the tomb 24 hours a day, and this was a trained guard unit. Josh McDowell notes, the Roman guard unit was committed to discipline, and they feared failure in any way. It would have been impossible for anyone to have slipped by the guards unnoticed and then moved the stone. Yet the stone was rolled away. If Jesus' body was anywhere to be found, his enemies would have quickly exposed the resurrection as a fraud. Tom Anderson, former president of the California Trial Lawyers Association, summarizes the strength of this argument.
With an event so well publicized, don't you think that it's reasonable that one historian, one eyewitness, one antagonist would record for all time that he had seen Christ's body? The silence of history is deafening when it comes to the testimony against the resurrection.
Were the disciples hallucinating? Maybe the disciples have experienced such an emotional pain that they hallucinated and imagined the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Psychologist Gary Collins explains that
hallucinations are individual occurrences. By their very nature, only one person can see a given hallucination at a time. They certainly aren't something which can be seen by a group of people.
And it's hard to imagine that 500 people hallucinated at the same time and saw the same thing. Is it just a legend? Some skeptics claim that the resurrection story began with one or more persons lying and thinking they saw the resurrected Jesus. Over time, the legend would have grown as it was passed on. But there are 2 major problems with that theory. Number 1, legends simply don't develop while multiple eyewitnesses are alive to refute them. The resurrection news spread too soon and too quickly for it to have been a legend. Number 2, legends develop by oral tradition and they are not supported with historical documents. Yet the Gospels were written within 3 decades of the resurrection and are supported by history. Did the resurrection really happen? There are a couple of interesting facts that support the resurrection of Jesus.
Everyone! The tomb is open. He's alive!
That's not possible.
I saw him!
Mary, maybe it was someone else.
Each eyewitness account reports that Jesus appeared on the 3rd day to women first. Now, why would the disciples put that in the Bible? In the 1st century, women had absolutely no rights, personhood, or status. And yet we read that women touched him, spoke with him, and were the first to find the empty tomb. Then we have multiple eyewitnesses. The disciples claim they saw Jesus on more than 10 separate occasions. They say he showed them his hands and feet and told them to touch him. He ate with them later and on one occasion appeared to more than 500 followers. something extraordinary must have happened with the followers of Jesus, because they ceased mourning, ceased hiding, and began fearlessly proclaiming that they had seen Jesus alive. These 11 former cowards were suddenly willing to suffer humiliation, torture, and death. All but one of Jesus' disciples were slain as martyrs. Why would they and other thousands sacrifice their life for a lie? Now, you probably think that there are many people today who are ready to die because of their beliefs. And that's true, but nobody would die for a lie which they know is a lie. I mean, there are crazy people who would do that probably, but not tens and hundreds of thousands of people. Why was the Christian movement so successful? By all rights, if there were no resurrection, Christianity should have died out at the cross when the disciples fled for their lives. But the apostles spread what they saw and experienced. And whatever you believe about the validity of Jesus' resurrection, clearly something happened after his death and has made a lasting impact on our world. When world historian H.G. Wells was asked who has left the greatest legacy in history, the non-Christian scholar replied, "By this test, Jesus stands first." And what is that legacy? Time is marked by his birth, BC, before Christ, and AD, which in Latin means in the year of our Lord. More books have been written about Jesus than about any other person. About 100 great universities were established to spread his teaching, including Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, Columbia, and Oxford. Jesus' teaching that all people are created equal laid the bedrock for human rights and democracy in more than 100 countries. The high value Jesus placed on each person, regardless of sex or race, led his followers to promote the rights of women as well as abolish slavery. Humanitarian works such as the Red Cross, World Vision, Samaritan's Purse, Mercy Ships, ADRA, and the Salvation Army were founded by his followers. Oxford professor C.S. Lewis, who had once doubted the existence of Jesus, was also persuaded by the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, and he writes,
Something perfectly new in the history of the universe had happened. Christ had defeated death. The door which had always been locked had for the very first time been forced open.
If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, his words wouldn't have any meaning to our lives. But if his resurrection really happened, then Jesus is the only one who can answer life's most important questions, like who am I, why am I here, where am I going after I die, and what's the purpose of my life. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you want to be notified when a new video comes out every week, every Thursday. See you next Thursday.